Hey there, and welcome to the Death to Vanilla podcast. I'm Stephen Burkhart, the host of the show and the founder of Burkhart Creative Agency. If you're looking for fresh ideas and tactical advice on how to take your marketing to the next level, you have come to the right place. We interview industry professionals who teach us how to courageously create, boldly innovate, and experiment, and they teach you to do the same. Now, we are super grateful that you're here and watching, but if you're looking to get off your phone and have a little less screen time, we have an audio-only version of the show, and we have links to that show in the description below. Without further ado, let's get into the show.
Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters, we know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but right here, make sure you walk and your talk is constant.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Death to Vanilla podcast, and I've got Maddie on as a guest today, and I'm super excited to have her on because she just works a lot in like automations and funnels and just like incredible like follow-up and processes to be able to develop leads and nurture leads. And we've talked a lot about like relationship building when it comes to like actually phone calls before on other podcasts, but this is kind of like more on the automation side, or at least we'll unpack that a little bit, which is so awesome when you're trying to scale, when you're trying to grow. Certainly word of mouth is awesome, but can only get you so far so fast, and to be able to have an incredible process in place to be able to scale your efforts is huge. So I'm excited to have you on the show, that you can share a little bit of your knowledge with the world. And so people from other industries and other practices can take that and run with it. So if you don't mind, brag a little bit, pat yourself on the back, let us know what it is that you do and what you're all about.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show today. Yeah, my name is Maddie, and I basically work in the online space where I help online coaches, a lot of women online coaches, basically scale their coaching programs using automations and evergreen systems. So things are put into place where you're kind of a little bit more hands off. You can focus more on the creative aspect of your marketing. And then on the back end, you have a lot of things, nurturing your leads, email build outs, sales build outs, and all those different funnels, taking care of your leads, like we said, nurturing them. So I basically run in that space, and I help women build their programs that way. So they have more like time and freedom on the front end of their businesses, and they're not constantly in and out working 24/7, feeling crazy and overwhelmed with all the different things that they have to do. And they know it's on an automated system. So it's basically what I do, and I absolutely love it.
That's amazing. I think one thing that's interesting, so out of just sheer curiosity, the women that are in your groups, do they need the extra time because they just have really healthy boundaries on their time, or is it the fact that they're like moms or have families and they like literally can't do 40 hours, or what's kind of like the fit there?
Yeah, definitely. So I work with one specific she's a single mom, and she has like a 4 or 5 year old child. So this is like a perfect example. She wants to be able to have more time freedom with him, and that's why she started her entrepreneurship journey, was to be out of the 9 to 5 job. She started her small business basically so she could have more time with him and be able to travel the world. But she realized when you step into entrepreneurship and you run a small business, it actually takes up probably more time than your 9 to 5 job did.
100%.
And I think we both can agree on that. So
Yes.
it was the transition of, all right, I love what I'm doing, but how do I scale this even farther where I can gain my time back, still be a small business owner, entrepreneur, and be able to still have the time and freedom with my son and make the same exact money, if not more, and it come in automated for me. And I'm not in and out of my cell phone, in and out of sales calls all day, in and out of meetings and things like that.
Right. I mean, that makes so much sense. I mean, I feel like, I can't speak on the girls' end, but from what I've overheard people talking about is if you're like a stay-at-home mom, you're like largely like a virtual assistant, which like can only get you so far, is only so creative. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who really thoroughly enjoy it, but it's neat to know that you can put a system in place to be able to do something other than that. And and realistically, like even for the people who are listening who are like maybe like stuck in a 9 to 5 or even happily in a 9 to 5, but they want to be able to expand what they do, having a system in place, like some of the things we're going to talk about, is going to enable them to be able to have a side hustle that's actually profitable, that actually does well. And so it's not just like a, what do they call that? Well, like a hobby, but there was something else I was thinking. But anyways, just like the
I know
idea,
what you're
like it can
saying. I
actually
just can't
profitable.
remember the
Yeah.
word. Yeah.
Yes. It's oh well, I guess it doesn't matter. But anyways, so the one thing that you and I, when we first chatted, was just talking about like the evergreen content. Like, and you and I both know, and anyone who's ever really tried to make it on social media or with blogging and stuff like that knows that there's like a little bit of a treadmill you get on when it comes to making content, and you become painfully aware very quickly that the lifespan of content is super short. And so you're constantly making more, constantly repurposing. And so the word evergreen brings peace and hope and happiness into my heart, because it's like, oh, like this is going to last for longer than 5 seconds. So if you could unpack a little bit about what evergreen content means for the people that you serve, and what that kind of looks like, feels like, and how that really functions in their business.
Yeah, definitely. So evergreen means that like you have a system set in place where someone can click a link, they can watch an intro video or maybe a webinar about your product, your program, or whatever you're selling. And within that video, it's going to discuss a lot of things based off of your clients' pain points, struggles, and a way for them to maybe implement a new strategy for themselves. They learn something from there. And then within that system, they get nurtured through an like an email funnel and follow-ups and things like that. They'll get invited to maybe a Facebook group. And within this whole realm, you know that your clients are constantly being nurtured through an email funnel that's automatically being set up, a Facebook group that has a lot of free content in there where they can talk through things. And then they're also getting your offer as well through those emails of buy the program, buy the product, buy the offer, whatever it is. So it frees up your time to be more, I guess, available and aware for like Instagram or YouTube, or maybe you promote on Facebook. Because I think while you're running a sales program or you're selling your product, it's really hard to like be consistent on your Instagram, or it's really hard to be consistent on your YouTube channel because you're like, I have these sales calls or I have this. So Evergreen like handles that back end stuff for you. You know your product's being sold for you. So you can be really, really intimate and specific and dial in like on your social media. And like you were saying, like content can be the death of us, and it's constant. So if we free up time on the back end with an evergreen system, we can then be more present on our social media platforms and actually create really solid content that's going to resonate with our clients and our niche.
For sure. Well, and I think that like lots of people like potentially have plans for how they're going to get attention, but not necessarily like a lot of plans of what they're going to do with it. And being able to have like super solid pieces of content that be able to take them through your process is super important. In your experience, what has been some of the things that people have to think through for them to make those pieces of content? Because like for me, I immediately think about it from like a messaging perspective, where like if you don't really understand the story of your business, or you really don't understand what differentiates yourself, I feel like those are pretty hard pieces of content to make at that point. So what kind of process do people need to really think about and go through when they're making that evergreen content that's going to like represent their business to everyone who goes to their funnel?
Yeah, exactly. So basically what you really want to think is your messaging, just like how you think about your messaging on Instagram, things like that. It's really, really important to understand your overall messaging and exactly what you want someone to take away from it. So when it comes to an evergreen system, I would say, what do you want them to learn while they're going through the system? Because honestly, people won't go through and watch a video or a webinar or look at a sales page if they don't think they're actually going to gain something from it, or they're actually going to learn something from it. So you have to somewhat put up a little bit of free content and think about, okay, what do I want people to learn enough about me and enough about my product to then want to know more and more and more, to continue to want to open up my emails, to then want to buy my program, whether that's a coaching program, your product, or anything like that. So then they feel like, oh, I got enough on the front end that I need to know more and I want to buy into this because this will then heal my pain points even more. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And just for like, if you could give some like maybe some specific examples of like the thing that comes to my head is like, okay, well, like, well, you get people to the site, you begin to educate them a little bit. What have you found to be like compelling pieces of content that people are giving away that seems to work well? Like, obviously we're talking about the coaching space, but
Yeah.
there's always that question of like, how much do I give away? How much do I talk about? And then am I giving enough away that people are compelled and feel like they really got something out of it? So like, what are like some pieces of content that you typically try to pull together for people that people find helpful, compelling, and gets them engaged?
Yeah, so I first want to think about like the biggest pain point that's going on in your like your current niche's market, which we all understand that there's
Hmm.
pain points that they have. From that pain point, you are going to create a solution and you're going to create like a step-by-step action plan that they can take. Now we know very detailed action plans, they'll buy your course or they'll buy your product and obviously they'll get that, but more so an overview. And people you think that people know exactly how to do something or they already know it because you're well aware of it yourself, but what
Yeah.
actually they're not that well aware of it and they don't fully understand it. So I've noticed that action steps or a roadmap is really good, or I call them blueprints of maybe
Okay.
like 5 steps that someone can take today to then further their content. So whether you're teaching someone more about how to build a funnel or how to create an email or how to create more video work like you do, you could create 5 action steps on like you need to know how to do this first, you need to have this equipment, you need to have this set in place, and then lastly you need to have this, and then give little snippets of overviews. So it gives them enough to take away where they could go think about their process of what they're currently do, make some tweaks, and then they're running back for more because they're like, wait, there has to be a deeper level to this. Like
Yeah.
I've taken those steps, it's fixed a little bit, but I want even more. And that's when they'll run into your email funnels and your emails that you're sending out. And they'll understand that, wow, there's more to this. And if I buy her program, she'll detail it even more to me. So
Right. I mean, to me, that sounds like 7 easy emails, like, because you have the one that gives the outline of the 5 steps, and then, well, I guess that's 6 emails. And then you would have like an email for each step that digs a little bit deeper, which,
absolutely.
would be easy enough to make, especially if you're, in that world all the time. I mean, shoot, that's a pretty decent sequence already, and all you've done is broken apart a 5-step program. So,
Basically, and that's really all it is, and I think we overcomplicate it, that
yeah,
it's more detailed or harder than that is, and that's really all it is. You create a roadmap, and then within it, you share your own story of how that roadmap has helped your business, your growth with your product, and every email dives deeper and deeper and deeper in it, so they wanna continue to open up their emails, and that the last email, you give them opportunity to be a part of your program or maybe watch a more into depth detail video about your program.
right, absolutely. So you said something interesting earlier that I want to kind of circle back to, which is you talked a little bit about some of these automation systems giving people more time to be creative. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that and just like, maybe speak a little bit to what people are like missing out on outside of the obvious of time when it comes to, automating some of their systems.
Yeah, so I think like what people feel like they're missing out on right now, we're like you do video work and Instagram just announced that they're a video platform now. They're not just posting photos, they want you to do more reels,
Hmm.
IGTVs. YouTube's the same thing. And then YouTube just created YouTube Shorts. So those 30-second to minute videos, because we have short attention spans. But
Yeah,
sometimes videos and creating content like that takes a little bit up of your time or takes a little bit
yes,
for you to get creative into those
just a little
things.
bit.
Just a little bit, right?
Yeah,
And people are maybe scared or it puts them outside their comfort zone to show up on video. So having an evergreen system now, doing all that sales work on the back end, creating those roadmaps, nurturing your leads through emails and stuff, gives you the time and space to be creative now with video work or content in those certain spaces like Instagram and YouTube now, since those are platforms that are blowing up. TikTok's blowing up, and that's a video platform as well. And that seems to be what creates a lot of leads and creates a lot of movement in people's businesses right now. So that was
Right.
more what I was saying, is they would give and free up time for those things.
For sure. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm not in the coaching space very much, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm fairly clueless on it. So are
That's
these
okay.
coaching right? Are these coaching programs, are these more like personal brands? Because like all I can think of is like, how does someone who doesn't want to show up on video show up? And that's, hire someone else to be on the video. But if it's a
Right.
personal brand, obviously that's a complete no-no for the most
Right.
part. And so like, how does someone work through that? Like, is that allowed? Is that taboo? Like, how does that work?
I think it's whatever you want to create it to be. But a lot of the people I work with are personal brands because, I mean, you wouldn't hire a coach unless you personally connected with them. So they're
Mm.
personally showing up in video content like that. But I know as you scale, like they do hire people to do their video work and their um, edit their stuff because their business has scaled so largely that they don't have time to do that anymore and they're focusing on other things. So it just depends on exactly how you want to show up and what you want to represent in your whether program or business model, I guess you would
Well,
say.
I was not so much like getting the work done as more as like having like on camera talent is more what I meant.
Oh,
So because
um,
then if you're like, if you don't feel like you can do, or maybe you literally can't do a good job on camera, then you maybe have some other options. I mean, the one thing that pops in my head immediately is like whenever you see the videos where people just have like a bunch of like stock video footage and they just basically do like a voiceover on top of it. I feel like that's a good way to get around that if you're wanting to show up in video form but like can't deliver well on camera. So I guess I was more asking like, do some of these people hire like on camera talent to be able to like deliver some of the content, or is that just like not a thing?
I don't really think I've never really seen that, and that's I don't think was really a thing unless you are hiring someone unless like I do know some marketing agencies do hire people to be on video camera. I actually work with a woman, she has a coaching program and she has a marketing agency and she has someone on her team that does all her video work for her marketing agency
Nice.
because she's like, I don't really have the time for it and I'm not the face of that brand. It's more just a platform to scale like my marketing agency and someone else shows up for her on that who's really good at that and she shows up on her personal brand in a different way. But if you're not good
Okay.
at video, I mean, there's a lot of ways to learn to be good at video and you don't have to be good at video to like I think be successful.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to think about like how if video is the direction things are headed and you're not good at it, like what do you do? I mean, obviously just getting better is
Yeah.
a great approach. And certainly there, I'm sure you probably have people that that are coaches specifically for that. Because that's
Mhm.
totally a thing. It's essentially just public speaking, but to a lens. Um, Without an audience, sadly. A little less exciting.
Sadly, yeah.
Not a whole lot of feedback. But yeah, so that's kind of interesting. So let's talk a little bit about some of the funnels, you know what I mean? So we talked a little bit
Mhm.
about like automation and having like some evergreen content that gets people in the pipeline. But what do you think about when you think of funnels? Like how is that functioning for these coaches?
Can you like can you re-ask that question? Sorry.
Sure. Let me think about that differently. Maybe a better question is like, what kind of funnels are you building for these coaches? Like, is it just like, is it simple like awareness, nurture, decision kind of
Mhm.
funnels? Or are they like something specific that you do for them that's like specific to maybe the coaching world that you help them work through?
Yeah, I would say a lot of them are like lead magnet funnels and webinar registration funnels, which then funnels them into collecting emails. So the biggest reason why I would like build a funnel is to gather information of someone to then collect their email because an email is something that you can hold on to, that's yours no matter what. So if your business explodes, it flops or anything like that, what you do have is you have an email list, and an email list is huge. So
Mhm.
building lead magnets of like offering, like we said, the free blueprint, building that out to gather that email is really important. And then building out an offer to say that like, oh, join my free webinar class, or join my free registration class, or however you want to, master class, however you want to do it. That's a great way. And that's another funnel that I build out for a lot of them, to gather that information, that email, that name, then put it in our database, which is like our CRM database of emails.
Right. So I think the webinar thing for you and I is pretty straightforward, because we've either been a victim of it or done it ourselves. So
yeah, I think we've all been victims of it.
I know, right? But so could you just explain a little bit about like how that functions? Like, how do you get people into the webinar? What does a webinar normally look like for the people you work with? And then, you know, obviously, I'm guessing the webinar is how you get the email, but just walk through that a little bit if you could, of like how that specific funnel system works.
Yeah. So I would say that someone would get into a webinar based off of an email sequence that's sent out. And at the end of the email sequence, they'll get offered to go into it. So just how we were doing like the free blueprint, at the end of that email sequence, it'd be like, hey, do you want to learn even more and how this exactly mapped out for you? Join the webinar. Or someone can get into the webinar based off of like a post, a video that is created on either YouTube, social media, TikTok, Reels, Instagram, Facebook, in a group where you teach on a topic or teach a little bit about something, whether that's you're going over confidence or business hacks or whatever your webinar is about, for
Right.
them to get them to click on the link and say, hey, this is where you're going to learn more about my strategy. Go watch this 30-minute to 45-minute webinar, and it will break it down even more for you. And so that's just another way for someone to get into the webinar.
Okay. So the webinar, at least in this particular context, is post getting the email. And this is like then part of the nurturing of the
Correct.
like the email sequence. Okay.
Yeah,
And
it
the
could go both
blueprints.
ways. It's just
Okay.
basing on like how you want to do it. So you could show up front with like your blueprint, your free lead magnet, or your free content, or your free download that you want to give someone, whatever that is. And from there, you can gather someone's email, and they'll go through the email sequence and they'll get their free content. And then at the end, they could get asked to join your webinar or learn more about your program. Or you could do it up front and talk about your webinar and say, like, click this link right here to be a part of our free class. We have a 45-minute class that we offer as well. And that could come from a piece of content you put out there. It could be on your YouTube page, things like that. So
Right.
you could go either direction. I don't think either way is right or wrong. It just all depends how you want to set it up and like your ultimate end goal.
Right. So out of curiosity, because I feel like I've experienced a number of different kinds of webinars, in the sense that like some of them have been completely pre-recorded. Some of them have been, you know, like, I'm guessing live. And then I've definitely had some that were like a hybrid, where like part of the webinar presentation was pre-recorded, but they were still live interacting with people. What have you found have been the most successful? Because like obviously it's a huge time commitment for, you know, you, the coach, to be
Right.
live there, but there's got to be some value to being able to interact as well. So like how do you find that it's worth it? Is it not worth it? Like how, you know,
Yeah.
can you justify spending that much time?
I think there's pros and cons to it. It depends on the price of your coaching program, what you're actually selling, and things like that. Being live, there's a lot of benefits to it. I would say the benefits of it, you can interact a lot more with people. You can answer questions live that they might have. You can go over like all those different things. There's probably more energy that's brought. The one thing though about being live is the time that you pick to be live is the time that you hope works for everybody else. And that doesn't always work for everybody when you're launching. And a lot of people will then watch the replay anyway. And so you have half the people that are live and then half the people that are watching the replay, and you don't get to interact with those people that watch the replay. So there's systems and there's programs that you can use to be quote, quote, live or make it feel like you're live. But then you
Right.
have like an automated chat system that they have questions they can like put into the chat. And then it goes straight to your email, and then you can respond in email with them as well. So you're not live, it just kind of appears that you're live. And then that gives an opportunity for people to then if they don't make the class live, they can go in and rewatch it, and they'll get an email. Oh, you didn't make it live. Here, re-opt in, watch it on your own convenience, or choose the time that works best for you. So that's what I found with pre-recorded webinars, that they can choose the time that works best for them. So they can get
Right.
like 3 time options, and some say they're their mom and they're kind of crazy and they're like, oh, this time works best for me, I'm going to choose that time. Then they have the opportunity to do that. So I think it gives a little bit wider spread of people to be able to actually show up and watch the class.
Right. I'm trying to think, like, do you know of anyone who's like offered a webinar and then a live webinar? Like, oh, like you can watch it these couple times, but I'm going to be live on this one. Like, I wonder if like, because like part of me is wondering like, oh, would that make the ones that aren't live feel like less cool, even though people like already know that most aren't live? But then at the same time, like you're still putting value on like the time that you're spending there. Like, oh, like this is my live one. This is when I'm going to be able to answer questions. Like, I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, is that kind of like a cool, like, you know, like you, let's say you have 5 times in the day and one of them you're actually live for. Do you think that's, I don't know, like, what do you think about that idea? Just thinking
Yeah,
out loud.
that is a cool idea, if like you have the time to like allocate for that every single day, and there's like specific time blocks
Right.
um that you choose with like certain systems that you choose to be like evergreen webinars. Like, they actually do the times for you. So say you
Mm.
go in and you click the class at noon PST, there's 3 time slots for the afternoon that it gives you. Say you go in at 9 o'clock PST, there's a few time slots that afternoon, and then there's probably one the next morning. So it actually like automates it for yourself to be able to pick the time. So it's not the same time every single day. It's all based off of the person that joined and clicked on that class at that specific moment. And that's all set
Oh,
up
okay.
through automation as well. So that's all like
Hmm.
programmed in the back end for them to be able to like see that.
Right. No, that's, no, that makes sense. That I could see why they'd be a little bit smoother. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, we're always like going back and forth between like, how much time can I dedicate and how much time can I not? And if I
Right.
dedicate more time, is it going to have a higher ROI?
Right.
And if, or am I going to be happy enough with what I get fully automated, knowing that like I'm giving up probably some people because of the fact that I'm not like interacting in real time with them. But hey, if you're getting enough clients, then who cares if you're losing 1 and gaining 5? You know what I mean? Like, I guess it just depends on what your business goals are.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it depends on that. And it also depends on like your messaging and being willing to like, all right, do I need to change up my messaging? Am I tracking my KPIs properly? Am I figuring out how many people got registered but didn't show up, but didn't get a sale? Like, what does that all look like? And those are things that you have to track as well while you're going through a system like this, to see if your messaging is on point and people are actually resonating with it.
right. So
It's
out of
huge.
curiosity, yeah. Oh yeah, you always got to optimize. Um, how long are these funnels typically? I mean, like, because at some point you're like looking down the barrel of like, oh, like, do I need to have 20 emails, 30 emails, 50 emails? Or, you know, or after 5, if someone's like not in it, like they're just not going to be, no matter how many emails I send them.
Yeah, I think that you don't have to have 30 emails. I think these some of these funnels, they nurture them
Thank
for like
goodness.
so yeah, for real. They
Yeah.
nurture them for like 7 emails, and that's their choice. And then you can set up for them to be put into like didn't buy category or didn't buy list, or a tag that you can put on them. And
Mm,
then they'll get your like weekly newsletter or your weekly or your monthly updates, and you'll have those that go out. And maybe the reason they didn't buy was because it was not the right timing. So you
yeah.
can't really think of it as like, oh, they're never going to do it. It's just not the right time. And they're going to continue to see you show up on social media. Maybe they don't fully trust you yet. And so you still need to create trust with them. And they're like, well, I'm just going to follow her on social and see how it goes. And I'll get into her free Facebook group and I'll learn more about her. But it's still
Right.
in the back end of their mind. And then now you have your weekly updated newsletters or your monthly updated newsletters of what you're doing, where you at in your life, and all that stuff. And then they can join back in the funnel whenever they want to again.
Right. Yeah, I always say, like, no matter how good a burger is, you can't sell it to someone who's full. So if it's a bad
Correct.
time, if it's a bad time, it's a bad time. And
Right.
you can only hope to stay top of mind well enough and efficiently enough that when the time is right, that they're ready to pull the trigger.
Exactly. I completely agree.
Yeah. So you brought up Facebook groups, and so for me, not only owning the information, but kind of like the sense of like one-on-one community is one of the things I really love about like the email marketing space.
Yeah.
To be able to have like those actual conversations and stuff. So when it comes to like Facebook groups or anything like that, what have been some places that you find are really good at nurturing that good community? Because I had a guest on. He loved Twitter groups like so much, and I never hear people talk about that.
Never heard anyone
So
talk about that.
yeah, so but he freaking loves them, and so bless his heart. But yeah, so I don't know, like has Facebook groups been really killer for you? Has there been other places that have been really really good at developing like a solid, like somewhat close knit community?
Yeah. I would say Facebook groups are huge and they've actually been like a big selling point. Like I sell a lot of my coaches sell out of Facebook groups and a lot of people sell out of Facebook groups
Mm,
because you can create so much content in there and there's so much sense of community. People are commenting, people are saying what helped them, that they're so excited about this program, or thanks for interacting. And that's a really great place for you to then interact live with them as well.
right.
So setting up a Facebook group is, I think, is huge for anybody because community is what people crave.
Yeah.
Um, and connection. So they want to know that they can have a super close connection with you outside of just Instagram. Because I think Instagram can be a little superficial sometimes, but a group is a lot more intimate. Um, you can be in messenger chat with them, you can respond to them a lot differently, and then you can have a lot more, I guess you'd say, dialed in content in your group of specifically what you're offering and what you're all about.
Right. So out of curiosity, so I'm always going to ask about content because that's just what I
Yeah,
do. So
I know. I love
when
it.
you, right, so when you're thinking about content for these Facebook groups, do you like you know just posting generic stuff like you would, not generic, but just like kind of like nicely packaged advice like you would maybe on Instagram? Is that kind of some of the things that you post about, or is it like lots of like polls and quizzes just to get people talking and to kind of find out where people are sitting? Like, what kind of content are you doing that's like that targeted, helpful content for that group?
Yeah, I think it depends on what your group's specifically for. Is it
Yeah.
for just creating community? Is it for selling a product or selling a program? But with the clients that I work with, there's a lot more of a deeper strategy behind it. So a lot of challenges are done in Facebook groups. So you can create a
Mm,
challenge in a group where you do like a 3 day challenge. They show up live with you. You can go live, they interact with you. And at the last day of the challenge, they can get a gift card or something that gets people
okay.
to really, really interact with you. Those are great ways to do it. Um, you can have a welcome post that is like pinned to the top. And then when someone gets added into the group, they automatically get tagged on that, welcoming them specifically to the group and then telling them, hey, post a picture about yourself. Why'd you join this group? What excites you the most? That gets people to be really interactive. And those are ways to understand their pain points of specifically why they joined your group and what
Mm,
they're looking for then you to then
clever.
create content. Yes, it's really clever.
Yeah.
Then you can pull content from that, like that's why they joined this group. So I'm going to show up more in those ways to teach them some of that stuff. So those are more strategies that I would do inside my Facebook group.
I mean, I think that's awesome. I mean, it's like, I mean, it's certainly not like a new thing that of like focus groups, right? Like that's the whole
Yeah.
point, is that companies would pull together customers or random people to be able to get their perspective on, what the brand stands for, what they're selling, how they feel about it, like what their experience has been. And so I think what's new and more interesting though is like having that focus group not even be a focus group. It's a different kind of group that you're happen to be able to leverage in that way as well. Because like you said, like you're literally able to identify without guessing what people's actual needs are, which I think is huge. And that's really been a theme with a lot of our guests, is like a lot of people are making a lot of assumptions when it
Yeah.
comes to what the pain points are how they can best help them, what kind of product they need. And so the problem with guessing is that you never know if you're right. And like you are eventually, but why not just find out from the person you're trying to help what they need? And then, make a very safe assumption that more people like them also need that thing. And that totally gets you a chance to be able to build better content and have better conversations, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think like super important, instead of guessing, seeing what other people are doing that are in the same like niche market that you're in, that you want to serve. So like doing market research. All right, someone is selling this specific product. They're doing very well. I have something similar. Why are they doing so well? What pain
Mm,
points are they hitting? Is there a need for that? And oftentimes you can figure out if there really is a big need for that market, and that's a good way for you to spin off of it, to find out if that is a pain point that people are really desiring to be solved. So market research is huge. Whether you're doing it in your Facebook group, you're specifically asking the people joining in, or whether you're doing exploration in other people's groups that are within your niche and your realm, to figure out how they're being successful and who they're specifically targeting.
right, for sure. Have you ever tried LinkedIn groups at all, or has it primarily been on Facebook?
I have not specifically tried LinkedIn. It's definitely a new strategy that I've been looking into. So I can't talk a ton about that, but I
Yeah.
actually started looking into it just recently because a lot of people are saying that it's a great place where people hang out, and a lot of business people hang out there, or people who are looking for different opportunities. So it's going to be something I'm going to tap into more soon.
Yeah, I've been hearing some of
Have you
the
used them?
same thing. I had one. I never really utilized it, and then it was really based around like an old podcast that I was running, and so I kind of have to like revitalize it and make a new
Hmm.
one. But yeah, you notice trends. People keep talking about LinkedIn quite a bit,
Hmm.
and at least maybe like a year ago, like people were saying something like it's like an absurdly low amount of people on LinkedIn make content, like
Mm,
super low, like 10% or something like that.
wow.
And so what I think is a huge opportunity for people who are making content to be able to like completely dominate. That's just an opinion. What I've heard from people, like from different emails and different people who work in the LinkedIn space, is like it is like the place for the best organic reach right now. And so I think those two ideas combined is not a lot of people making content and great organic reach is just a real win. Because
Yeah,
everyone's always known that like business people are there and decision makers and stuff like that. So that's not like new. But the fact that
right.
it's like really good to get organic reach, that is totally new. And and you got to take advantage of it while it lasts, because they're just going to dump some algorithm in there eventually that's going to
Right.
start like knocking down how many posts people see. So you kind of have to get on it while it's hot. So, but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
curious on groups. I haven't participated much in them or been a creator of them. And so I'm kind of curious if that's going to be like on the business side, kind of functioning like a Facebook group in that sense.
Yeah, I'm really curious too. People are like raving about LinkedIn right now, especially with like the new rules with Facebook. They're cracking down on a lot of things. They don't want you to sell on your personal profiles or things like that. They want you to like use ads, and they want you to, you know, buy into those things. So a lot of people I know are switching over to LinkedIn because, like you said, has more of an organic reach. But I'm curious
Facebook
to see
wants
how
your
it
money.
goes. Facebook wants your money. I know, right? So I'm curious how it's gonna move in that direction with the organic reach. And I didn't even realize that they had LinkedIn groups. So that's really cool. That's something I didn't know.
They have LinkedIn ads too. It just depends on whether or not you want to afford them.
Right.
They are not cheap, but it's because they
Really?
know, no, not like they're super expensive. I don't have like any numbers off the top of my head, but I remember looking
Hmm.
into it and being like, yeah, that's a strong pass for me.
Yeah.
But the reason that they charge what they charge is because of who you're targeting. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like if you're
Hmm.
a business, if you're a B2B business, there is nowhere better to be. Like you couldn't possibly be more targeted. Like
Right.
it's crazy. And so that's worth something. That's worth extra money to be able to have that kind of targeting ability. You know what I mean? In Facebook, you're
Right.
gonna like eventually get to your right target, no matter how many
Right.
like little doodads you put in. But you know, with LinkedIn, theoretically, like everyone's a good match on some level,
Hmm.
unless they're just
Yeah.
posting because they go to college.
There you go. But that's not a bad market to target either. People who are in college and looking for
Mhm.
jobs, or maybe looking to not take a job and start an entrepreneurship journey, or whatever the case may be. So it's a good place, I think, maybe to start looking into more, especially if the organic reach is so high and so good.
Right? Agreed. I like having my efforts count. And sometimes I feel like
Same.
they don't on Instagram. So what can I
Yeah.
say?
I think
Um,
Instagram is just, like they said, it's a video platform and you have to make reels now. Like that's what everyone
yeah.
keeps saying. It's all about the reels and being very engaging and top of the mind. And that's the one thing
Yeah.
about Instagram.
True that. Well, cool. So as we wrap up here, just as out of respect to your time and the fact that my battery power is at 7%, um, what do you think are some like, just in wrapping things up, is there any other like tips or thoughts that you have when it comes to funnels or automation that you really want to share?
Um, I would say one tips is like don't overthink it, that like it's not capable for you to do. It's a lot easier. You can use really simple systems to get it to be done. And also like take the time to think about like what is something that you can give away for free that could really help your client or your current like customer, that they can gain knowledge from now, that then you can gather their email and then put them in a really simple seven day email sequence.
Mm,
And that's going to be something that will help you a lot and then give you something to actually like hold on to, because your followers on Instagram, they could go away, they could shut down your account, all these different things. So I
yep.
really want to encourage people, think of something that you can give away for free, that's an easy thing to then get them into an email system that's maybe 7 days to get them to know more about you, learn about your product, and then you now have actual like a solid concrete email and something that you can hold on to, whether an account gets shut down, your business flops, or anything like that. That'd be something.
Fair. I love it. Yeah, I mean, email is just like the most secure way to build a following I can possibly think of. And you're so right. It's like, I mean, you know, I don't know exactly like how long you've been in the space, but I mean, just as far as just like news headlines, I mean, you know, YouTube has changed a couple of times that have like just absolutely obliterated people's income. Instagram so many times, Facebook so many times, and let's be honest, like they're allowed to. It's a
Right,
free place that you paid
right,
no money to be at. And so
right.
it's like they're allowed to do whatever they want. But like when you start putting all of your eggs in those baskets and then something changes, that's when you realize like, oh, like I'm paying my mortgage on an income that can change overnight. And that
Hmm.
starts to become a little bit scary. And it's just not a really great long-term plan. And certainly, you know, kind of what we talked about. Yeah, you know, social media is a great way to get those leads to where you want them. Um, but isn't necessarily like the greatest place to be, at least primarily. You know, it's a great place to start building relationships and doing all those things. But at the end of the day, it's like, let's get them to an email list because I can still talk to them, interact with them, still have a great relationship with them, still promote my content through that. And I own
Correct.
their information for now until they change it or disappear or unsubscribe. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Right,
not like Gmail is going to wake up one day and all of a sudden I can't send emails anymore.
right.
Um, so, so I,
Exactly.
yeah, so cool. So, where can people find you so they can learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm on Instagram. It's called Life with Maddie Mains. Maddie's spelled Madi, and then it's like Main Street with an S, Mains. And then I'm on Facebook as well, Maddie Mains. Really simple. So just those two platforms is really where I'm locally at.
And go join your Facebook groups because then you can have good
Ye-
community.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do have Facebook groups. So if you do follow me, reach out to me, and I can add you to Facebook groups as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate it. You know, email, you know, funnels and automation is something we haven't had a chance to talk a little about on the show, and it's so important. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
jumping in today and dropping knowledge on that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching another episode. Be sure to check it out. We'll have it on Instagram. We'll have it on YouTube. We'll be posting clips of it throughout this next couple months. As always, feel free to reach out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, be sure to rate us on Apple iTunes, so that way, hacks the algorithm and we can get up in there. So that way, both our podcast and the people on our show can get more views and watches and listens. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip side.
Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters, we know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you walk and your talk is constant.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Death to Vanilla podcast. Now, if you made it this far, I'm guessing you probably heard something that was inspiring or helpful, and we would love to hear about it. So if you could drop that information in the comments or shoot me an email, steven@burkhartcreativeagency.com. That would go a long way to helping us choose guests and create content that really bring you value. Now, Instagram is my favorite social media platform, but I'm sure you have yours. And so we encourage you to find us on your favorite platform so that you have a chance to learn more about marketing that can help you out. Now, they say a rising tide rises all boats. So we ask that you would like, subscribe, and follow us, so that way the traffic that we get to our channel helps all of the guests that have been on. Our traffic is their traffic, and that helps everybody out, and it's super easy to do. So if you could rate us, like us, add us, follow us, whatever you need to do to help us out, that would go a long way. So we appreciate you and hope to catch you on the next episode of the Death to Vanilla podcast.